Reuben, good evening.
Good evening.
How are you doing?
Thank God. Thank God. Ilya, thank you very much. Everything's all right with you, I hope.
Of course, of course. So, once again, we have interesting and not always comfortable questions, but always very interesting and captivating answers. Today, we are continuing the question we raised last time about the place of women in Judaism, the place of the Jewish woman in Judaism. Last time, we stopped at a rather sensitive and ambiguous topic. And today we will continue discussing it, and the topic is as follows. Are Jewish women allowed to wear jewelry? Yes, they are, and moreover, it is necessary and encouraged. It is the duty of a man, of a husband, to bring jewelry to his wife and to give her these gifts. In the Torah, we find many places where this is encouraged and emphasized, including when the Jewish people left Egypt and traveled through the desert. Along with the manna, jewelry would fall from the sky, intended for the women. So, yes, absolutely, it is allowed. But at the same time, there is a prohibition for married women to show their hair to other men, and they do not wear wigs. So, do these two things contradict each other? Because women cover their hair so as not to tempt others. But jewelry, does it serve the same purpose to the same extent? That's the first question, and the second one is a bit tricky. Wigs are often even more beautiful than natural hair and can be even more tempting. Isn't there some kind of trick here to smooth things over a bit and do things the way you want, rather than the way you should? These are the kinds of uncomfortable questions. Reuben, what do you think?
All right. These are very interesting questions, and thank you for asking them. First of all, I'd really like to clarify, since we're talking about women's adornments and how important they are, and as you mentioned, just as manna fell from heaven, so did these adornments for women, and perfumes for women also fell. From this, we can already see that manna was what was necessary for survival. We see that adornment for a woman is something essential for existence. And a husband, at the very least on holidays, should buy some kind of jewelry for his wife. That is, our sages decreed that people who sell various kinds of jewelry and perfumes should not only sell them in some big city, but that they should also be present in different towns and small places, so that women too, that is, any women, even in remote areas, could buy jewelry for themselves. And here, in order to shed light on this issue and answer your question, we first need to understand the place of beauty in Judaism, especially how important beauty is for women. Why is jewelry so important for women? And let's return to what we already mentioned before, that a woman, in principle, by her very nature, is, if we can put it this way, a more perfect being. And her task is not to fix some shortcomings. Of course, everyone has flaws. We're not saying that you shouldn't at all. We're talking about the main task. The main task is to preserve her wholeness, maybe even develop it further, that is, to direct it more towards something positive. The Gemara says that. A woman, as it were, was created for beauty. But why is that? Is it connected to her completeness? Actually, to understand this, we need to figure out what beauty really is. How do we define the concept of beauty? Ilya, could you give us a definition or say what you think it is? We have a guest with us.
Yes, yes, a woman. Yes.
Could you give yes?
That's a very interesting question because the concept of beauty, first of all, has changed over time. It's completely different depending on the geographical location. And can it be universal? And here the answer is probably both yes and no. Because on the one hand, no, since everything has changed, tastes change, habits change, preferences change. We know that African tribes elongate their necks with rings and consider that beautiful, or have elongated skulls, and some people get tattoos. Beauty standards in Asia are generally very different. There, in Malaysia, people file their teeth into triangles and think it's beautiful. In ancient Japan, they used to paint their teeth black with charcoal, and that was the height, the standard of beauty, along with painted over eyebrows drawn high up. And to us now, that seems a bit strange and wild. So beauty is different everywhere, but there are also some universal things. We know that the golden ratio, it has always been and will be for quadrillions of years the standard of proportion and harmony. So harmony, Ilya, I would, some.
I think we can take as an example, like the statues in Greece, they're gods, right? So basically, that is beauty. And even now, if you look at it, it's still beautiful today. And what you pointed out, Ilya, I think,
That's relative, because Venus, her figure. Back then, what was considered beautiful was being healthy, right? So Venus has the body of a woman who can bear many children, and that's where the beauty was. And today, beauty is.
yes, Ilya, you're right.
That's a good question, yes.
As for Greece, it's actually the same thing. But in a later period, the Renaissance, Rembrandt's time, that changed, of course. But I think basically right now, our topic, of course, isn't Greek culture. I'd like to offer the following definition. I'll tell you, my daughter once came back from a camp, not a pioneer camp, of course, right? So they had a machine in the summer, like a camp. And she says to me, Dad, my Madricha, my counselor, she's a very beautiful girl. I ask, what makes her beautiful? Does she have a long nose? She says, no. A short nose? No, not that. Ears like satellite dishes? No, not big ears. So what makes her beautiful? She got confused. I told her, that's exactly what beauty is, when everything is just right, not too big, not too small. It's exactly this wholeness. I think, of course, everyone has their own views and so on. But wholeness is what forms the foundation of beauty. When everything is in its place, everything fits together. That's true, genuine beauty. And that's why I think we could really understand the connection between a woman's wholeness and her beauty. A woman's beauty is rooted in her inner beauty. Of course, that's not always said out loud. A person's wisdom lights up their face. That means, for a woman too, her inner beauty can be reflected outwardly. But that's not always the case. We have a verse. We sing it before Shabbat, before the Shabbat meal. This song is basically poetry, the final part of the book of Proverbs. And these verses praise a woman. And there's a saying there. Charm is deceptive, and beauty fades quickly. But a God-fearing woman, she will be praised. At first glance, one might think that these verses are denying the importance of beauty in women altogether. But the Vilna Jain asks a question. After all, we see that the Torah itself praises the beauty of women. when the Torah speaks about women like Rivka, Rachel, and Sarah. The Torah emphasizes that they were beautiful women. The Vilna Jain says that the correct understanding of this verse is that a God-fearing woman will be praised for her beauty as well. Why? Because her beauty is not just external beauty. It is an expression of inner beauty. Of course, there are many. There are some very interesting things here. But since our time is limited, I think for now we'll finish talking about beauty itself and try to understand why it's actually important for women to dress beautifully, to have beautiful jewelry, perfumes. Why is this important? Today, unfortunately, a woman's beauty is often associated with trying to attract someone, to get someone's attention, especially from men. But in fact, true beauty is not about that at all. We can see that a little girl, who has no intention of attracting anyone, let alone men, still finds it very important to dress beautifully and look nice. So looking beautiful is important not because a woman is trying to impress someone, but for the woman herself. When she feels that she looks beautiful, that she dresses nicely, it somehow affects her inner world as well. That's why, when we talk about, for example, a married woman needing to cover her hair, a married woman should cover her hair, and basically, it's not about attracting or not attracting someone. Covering her hair means that she has a husband. In other words, it's a way to show herself and the whole world that yes, she has a husband. Because, in fact, men also cover their heads. They cover their heads to show that they are, so to speak, walking under the Almighty. The idea that she is someone's wife, that's the essence expressed by covering the hair. The fact that, by covering her hair, she might even look more beautiful doesn't contradict the idea that she is covering her own hair. I hope I was able to answer this question in a way that's more or less clear to you.
Here's a small follow-up question. A woman covers her hair as a sign that she is a wife, that she has a husband. But about wigs, sometimes you can't even tell that it's a wig. Is she doing this for herself, or is she doing it for those around her? Because if she's doing it for herself, then yes, there are no questions, and she can wear anything she wants, even something indistinguishable from natural hair, for example. Right. But if she's doing it for those around her, because nowadays there are wigs that are just impossible to tell apart from real hair.
From the perspective of the strict law, she's doing it for herself, meaning so that she feels her hair is covered. So, from the perspective of the strict law, basically, if it's hard to tell a wig from real hair, there's no prohibition. It's not considered as if the woman is walking around with her hair uncovered. But in any case, of course, it's good for everyone to understand that she is a married woman. And still, it's preferable for the wig to be one that can be distinguished. But again, from the perspective of the strict law, even if it's impossible to tell the difference, it's still considered a head covering, and she fulfills her obligation.
Understood. So it turns out that a woman does this primarily for herself, and there's actually no contradiction, even though it might seem to many that there is. Thank you very much. A lot has really become clearer for me. I think it's the same for our viewers as well. So today we wanted to make a short video like this. We'll move on to the next question next time. So, thank you very much.
With pleasure. Thank you. You asked interesting questions.
We'll continue with more questions next time.
With God's help, we'll stay in touch. With God's help, all the best.
We'll prepare, yes. Something new, yes. Definitely.
Okay, let's do it.